What I regret is not establishing who's going to pick up the tab.
If they say, "Can I take you out to dinner?" Yeah, that means you're going to pay for me. But will be prepared to pay for my meal.
Was a very awkward pause, and I knew what was coming, and it was $1,000. Hi, it's Debbie and Caitlyn, and today's hot topic on dating at her age is who should pay for the first date? I've got a doozy of a story where I got stuck with a monster tab. Oh, I couldn't believe it when it was happening in the moment. And this is really why we're talking about this, because I want to sort through my own demons about that, Caitlyn. But what do you think when it comes to the first date? You're in your 20s. What do you 20-something-year-olds do on the first date? Who pays?
I mean, most 20-somethings are probably broke like I am. I'm getting better. But I just think that if you ask somebody out to do something for just first date, I'm talking specifically, the person who asks should pay unless you have a conversation like, "Hey, I would like to hang out with you, but can we split it because I'm a little short on cash or something." But if you ask someone, you should probably pay for them. That's how as long as if it's like a big expense, I don't think that's a lot for a first date. So later on those conversations we'll have. But yeah, if you ask somebody, expect to pay.
So more traditional.
I think so. I'm not saying I'm trying to use people to just like get them to buy me things, but if you ask me to do something, I will more than likely, because there's always that at the end of lunch or whatever, is this together or separate? That question always comes out, and I'm always like, I always say separate. I always start saying that, and they'll just, if they interject and say together, then I'm just like, I'm not going to fight you. I do that with my friends too. Like if you're trying to help me out, that's great because I don't have a lot of money. But
and it feels uncomfortable almost to establish that in the beginning.
Yeah, so
so you end up staring at each other, and then the server standing there with the tab, and you're like, is it together or separate? No, and so I wonder if establishing it in the beginning, is that just too awkward?
It's too awkward if you're just meeting them. I think that it's just, if that question comes up, I usually always offer it to be separate. I'm not going to offer to pay for them, but I'll offer to pay for myself, usually, unless it's like an extravagant dinner or something like that. But they typically interject, and I will allow them to interject.
So this kind of falls into my first date don't categories, which is I don't go out to dinner on a first date anymore.
Yeah, it's a good point. Buy yourself a cup of coffee and you're not breaking the bank.
There you go. That's what makes it, you can break the ice over a $2 cup of coffee at a coffee shop in the middle of the day, and there's a lot of reasons that are great to do that. One is if they stand you up, it's not like you spend a lot of time and money getting ready for the first date to meet for dinner. And it's just simple. You just take your cup of coffee and you go about your day, and you're like, okay, I'll never see that person. But when it's a dinner tab, it does become really uncomfortable. And I also feel, even at a coffee shop where a cup of coffee, and I drink my coffee with just a little bit of creamer in it, I'm not doing the $10 latte with all the special stuff in it. I've even felt uncomfortable with the guy standing there paying for my coffee, and I've paid for coffee dates, our first date, even though he's asked me out.
No, you shouldn't do that. You should not. I think if they ask you, you should allow yourself to be treated, or just pay for yourself, hold your own, and they can pay for themselves. See, it doesn't matter.
And so for my entire life, I have been used to paying for myself. And even men I've dated in the past, I've often, even when I was your age, I picked up the tab. But it just makes me, I do feel like whoever does the asking should do the paying.
It just
and
makes
I
sense.
thought that was old school. I thought this was 1980s old school. But you're saying, no, this is a thing now for 20-somethings.
I don't really know, but I think if you're asking someone to do that, if they say, "Can I take you out to dinner?" Yeah, that means you're going to pay for me. But will be prepared to pay for my meal, because I'm not going to just assume that that's what they're thinking. I would, if they're trying to, take me out, that's what that means to me, is that they're going to buy me a meal.
What do you feel about splitting the tab?
I'm fine with that. I don't have issues. I think we're all struggling, and I don't think finances, like, I'm in my 20s, so maybe I feel different about this. I'm
old. Okay.
I'm not saying if you're old.
You say it.
I'm just saying if you're more experienced in life and should have more of a foundation, it would be odd to do that. But I just think that I understand that I'm don't have a lot of extra money. So people it shouldn't be the barrier to just get to know me by having to splurge $80 for a dinner or something. Like, let's work this out for both interested. Yeah, I can take my half if we need to.
When we say split the tab, split the bill, whatever, at the restaurant, I always feel like, oh, this feels like more like a business meeting.
And honestly, I kind of think I say that, but now that I'm thinking about like being in an actual situation, if they just say, "Do you want to split it?" I would be kind of like, "Sure." I think it might make me feel a little like, well, you asked me here. Sure, I'll do that. But I've never been on a date where that's actually happened. They always pay for me.
I was on a date, this is years ago. A friend of mine, it was a mutual friend of both of ours, set us up, and she promised me this was Prince Charming. Okay. Apparently Prince Charming was broke, but that's okay. We went to a really pretty nice restaurant. It was a second date. I got the soup. I just got the soup. I didn't really feel like having a big meal for whatever reason. I don't remember, but I got the soup, and toward the end, like I was taking practically my last spoonful of soup and starting to put it in my mouth, and he says, can we talk about my business just a little bit so I can write this off? I can use this as a write-off on my taxes.
I mean, it's a smart decision.
The last time I saw the man, I was like, it's a $4 bottle. A bottle. I wish it was a bottle of something, but it was a $4 cup of soup with a free slice of bread on the side. And he said that, and I was like, oh, this is. Both dates did not go so hot anyway, but I just thought if I'm a business write-off, then this does not feel like a date. But when you split the tab, I feel like dates should be special. Because when I get asked out on a date,
it feels like you're being treated a little.
Well, I've climbed a mountain just to get one date. And I'm climbing that mountain with shoes of concrete to find the 50-something-year-old guy who actually won't use the word meet up or hook up and is going to take me on a date. And if we got to the end of that date and he's like, let's split the tab.
Yeah, it would be kind of like a dig almost. Which I don't know. That doesn't sound conceited or anything. I think that's just to be expected. And I think we both have kind of like I don't know, we're in our power is a way. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but I think that we don't know how to lean into like that feminine side to be treated and accepted.
Taken care of just a little bit.
Instead of giving, you can accept. So I think that sometimes it's hard, but I think if I'm going on a date with you and it was hard enough for me to get there probably because I had to talk myself into it. They need to sell me a little bit and just treat me. And it does not have to be expensive at all. That's you mentioned that you got like a small meal, and I think you can be mindful of that when you're on a date. If they go to dinner or lunch, just get a $15 max or something like that. Don't go crazy expecting them to pay.
I want to give both men and women permission. I guess I'd give myself and whoever I eventually end up dating permission to treat the other person with, treat them like they're special.
Right.
And I think picking up the bill and treating somebody to, and if you can afford it, an appetizer and a meal and maybe a little cheesecake or something after, makes somebody feel special. I think that just goes a very, very long way.
And vice versa. You don't want to just make them not feel special, like on our end as well. You just want to you want to say thank you. You want to make sure you're very appreciative of those things, or else you'll just seem stuck up, which I always say thank you for things like that, because it does mean a lot if someone asked me to go do something and they paid for my meal and they took the time to listen to me like that. I would feel very grateful for that.
So I want to let's highlight some of the research on this, because they've actually done some surveys. And then after the break, I want to talk about, it wasn't a first date experience, but a few weeks into the relationship, I ended up picking up a massive tab in the moment, and I still kick myself about it today. So it's a tale. It's a cautionary tale for you when you get asked to go on a bit of a road trip with somebody you think is you're in a relationship with. Okay,
situationship.
A situationship. Yeah. So I'm on the CBS News website, and I just love it when we can validate our opinions with research. And they asked this very question: who should pay on the first date? And they said experts are weighing in on this age-old question. And of course, they posted this story on Valentine's Day. So the research, according to CBS News, is really it really does bear out, Caitlyn, that over 70% of Americans, according to a NerdWallet survey, believe that in heterosexual relationships, the man should pay on the first date. So
I agree, but I also
that's what
it
you
depends.
said,
It also
right?
depends.
Or you said whoever did the asking,
asks, whoever made the move. So it's usually the man, though. It's usually the man.
Yeah. So, okay. So this really bears out that most Americans feel like it should be the man. Although here's a little bit more information where they break it down even more. Women expect their male dates to pick up the tab, and men put a lot of pressure on themselves because 78% say that's my job.
See, and I
So I'm not sure the research really bears out what we think.
Well, it makes me feel sympathetic towards men too, is because I do feel like they're burdened with that, like especially on Valentine's Day. They're the ones expected to do all the things. But I just think first date, and then after that, if you're continuing to, he doesn't have to pay for every single date. No, like that's not what I'm saying. But if you ask me for the first time and you want to, treat me, that's when I think you can pay. And then after that, we work together. It's fine. I'll get the next one. Or if you want to keep paying, great. I'm not going to fight you.
So it's like a ping pong, watching a ping pong game back and forth.
It needs to be a balanced effort, or else I'll just resent that because people aren't made of money. I know that it's tough out there. So, and that's why I say I don't want it to be a burden and something that pushes people away from just connecting with other people. And that just means do something cheap. You can go for a picnic, pack a lunch, do something like that, or just, it does not have to be extravagant, because I think money really does get in the way of people wanting to connect with others, because it always requires money.
So we're worlds apart in age and dating experiences, but what I'm taking away from this moment is, what do you want? And if you are constantly getting stuck with the bill and the tab, and that doesn't fit what you want, or you feel this pressure to always pay, and that's not on your list of things that you want out of a relationship, then you really have to have a conversation about it. You have
to, after like date 4, I would say. Give it, if it's more than
And I would
2
also
weeks.
say, if you are doing the asking, if I'm doing the asking or you're doing the asking, then we should expect to say at the restaurant or the coffee shop, no, I asked you out and I'm really excited to get to know more about you, and I'm happy to pick up that $2 coffee.
Yeah, at first. And then after that, I would, like if I was on the other end, I would probably offer after date 4, whatever. Be like, can I get this one? Because I would start to feel like they're doing a lot. Unless they're made of money, because I'm not.
And if one person in the relationship is always stuck paying the bill, they could just get so expensive because of the way
and I don't want to do that to
right
anyone.
now.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to people.
And I think it can give people true anxiety.
And
it
would
I don't know how
away.
I'm going to keep being able to afford to keep paying. Yeah. So I would certainly, if somebody was in a situation where they felt like they couldn't afford it, that we would be able to open up and have that conversation.
I would hope that if they are on my shopping list, they would be being able to communicate that with me if it was becoming a lot.
And you with them.
Yeah.
And you with them.
Yeah.
Next, how about if I spill the tea on how I got stuck with a $1,000 date tab?
Sounds like you got used. If you're loving our podcast, make sure to leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, we're back and we are talking about who pays for the first date. And Deb has a story about how she got stuck with a very high bill that would have literally drained my savings account.
And this was not the first date, but it was very early on. And what I thought was the blossoming of a relationship. Boy, was I wrong. And we had gone on several dates. to dinner. We'd gone on taken a couple drives together. We'd gone to different places. It was fabulous. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then he calls me up one night and he says, I have a great idea. He totally played on my inner Debbie, which was, let's jump in the car tomorrow morning and let's go fly fishing. And there's this great spot I know about. We can get a guide. And I'd never been fly fishing, so I knew I needed some help, some direction. He said, we can hire a guide. He'll take us down the river and we can fly fish all day. And I thought, this sounds like just heaven on earth. So I run around and gather up like all of the supplies that I can, grocery store, and pack the food. And in the meantime, he says, well, why don't, I'm driving. Why don't you go ahead and call the fly fishing company? Oh, I can do that. I'm at home. I'm not doing anything. So of course the fly fishing company had my credit card number because you have to make the reservation on the credit card number. So I gave him my credit card number. No big deal. Figured we'd figure it out along the way. So we get there. We have a fabulous day.
He asked you.
Yes, he asked me.
Okay. I would have done the same thing, but yeah, keep going.
So he asked me, I make the reservation.
Yeah, that's problem
and
number one. I would have done.
I'm all kinds of excited, Caitlyn. Yeah. I've never fly fished in my life. I love fishing off the shore. Yeah. Love it. And it's, it's some of the most relaxing fun I have is fishing. So I've just been wanting to fly fish. We get in the car. I got all the food packed. We get going and we get there. And of course, just an absolutely fabulous time. This guide was incredible and very patient. And I felt like I was catching all the fish that day. So I was highly rewarded on this trip. Mm-hmm. It was a great day. Beautiful sunny day. And the river was gorgeous and the scenery was beautiful. I have no regrets about going. What I regret is not establishing who's going to pick up the tab. When it came time to pay, we were both standing there. He did not leap into the, cashier's, behind the cash register there and hand him his credit card. It was a very awkward pause, and I knew what was coming, and it was $1,000. Yikes. Fly fishing, I learned, is expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you got your money's worth, but he didn't even offer to be like, hey, can I split that with you? Did that conversation come up? It was a very odd,
kind of like half-baked, do you want me to kind of... I felt in the way, and then you're standing there in front of the person you're supposed to be paying, and you just want to resolve it because they have spent half the day with you, giving you the experience of a lifetime. And so I just said, well, just go ahead and charge my credit card. And that was a real wake-up call to me. And shortly thereafter, he cut it off with me.
That sounds distasteful to me.
I could have gone on that fly fishing trip by myself.
And had
it would
a great
have been
time.
Half the price.
Yeah.
Not been heartbroken and also stuck with $1,000 tab for two.
That's that type of big event. I think that's awesome and such a fun day, but I would be more than willing to pay half of that. I'm not going to expect a guy who asked me to do that to pay for that entire thing unless he just really, really wanted to and had a bunch of money laying around. That's why I say I don't fight with people if they're really okay with that. But I am more than willing to take my share. About you, I always ask those questions of like, how much is this going to cost? How are we going to do it? Who's driving? Who pays for gas? Who does all of this? Those are questions that I do ask. So that's a good learning lesson to make sure that you don't just assume, oh, they asked me, I'm going to take care of
I'm
this.
learning from you. These are all the questions I should have asked. Yeah. Well, I knew better, but it's just... blinded by love, super excited to learn a new sport, very excited to take a road trip. It had just all of the markings of just this incredible experience. And it was a great experience, but I also learned a hard lesson, and that is establish those ground rules, no matter how uncomfortable it is to have that conversation with the guy. That's just going to have to be a conversation I'm going to have in the future. I want to go, out of town and have fun. Yeah. I just don't want to pay $1,000.
You shouldn't have had to. That's quite ridiculous, in my opinion. Going half I'm fine. I would have done that because not everybody has $1,000 laying around. Maybe didn't research about how much it was going to be, and
I had no idea.
He was shocked.
Yeah. Well, maybe I didn't. I mean,
but
I
you
didn't
shouldn't
know.
have been left with that. Absolutely not. No. So I think first date is very surface level. It would be awkward and it would probably push people away to be like, okay, so how are we going to pay for this? Like, just make it. That's why we do simple first dates.
It makes
that you can afford
takes the
on
guessing
your own.
out of it.
And
right.
then as things progress and that you just have a conversation, just be like, oh, this sounds super fun. I'd love to. How do you want to do this? Do you want me to get the food? I can pay for the food and you can reserve the actual trip. But my concern is, and I always end up putting my credit card on things, is because I don't think it's actually going to get done.
Unless
so I'm just
you do
like,
it.
let's just get it done. Let's get it reserved because I do it quick and things book up or whatever, tickets sell out, whatever the situation is. And I always end up taking that front, and I do usually get paid back. Like, I'm just speaking for most of my friends and stuff like that. But you're usually stuck with a little bit of a balance on your card.
Talking this out with you has also made me realize I was so excited to do it. I rushed into it without doing any of the research.
Sense.
Well, but we get, like I said, blinded by love. We get caught up in the moment and we don't think logically. And I guess I'm really glad it was only $1,000. I mean, they could have said $2,500 or $3,000. Think of that.
$1,000 would have really hurt my bank account. Like, I barely have $1,000
Do you think
in
it
savings
helped
right
mine?
now. No, but you, I think, have more money that just generally saved away because you're established. But like, it wouldn't have happened.
I understand.
I could have, like, half of that would have hurt me. So I'm sure it hurt. It would hurt everybody.
My oldest daughter is just ever so slightly younger than you are. And I know if she probably would have called me crying.
It would have been on a credit card that would have taken me a few months to pay off. That's what would have happened. So.
And for me, I was just bothered with myself. But I knew I would be okay.
How awkward was that drive home?
Very, for me.
Well, like you didn't.
Very awkward.
That's just, I can just imagine
that's that. Another lesson. We're 3 hours away. So we got a 2.5, 3 hour drive home. And, I mean, I didn't bring it up. I mean, I didn't.
I would have. The first thing I'd be like, so do you want to split that with me? I can send you a Venmo request. That would have been the comment. That's what I would have said. Well,
I looked back on it and I thought I should not have even been caught in that situation to begin with.
You shouldn't have.
And not saying, he should have been, I shouldn't have put myself in that situation to begin with. However, I've learned a really, really valuable lesson. And that is this. I do have to, no matter how head over heels I feel, and how somebody has made me feel like, I'm the love of their life, that I really have to watch out for me too. And not in a, guarded, super guarded, walls around me kind of way, but just stop for a moment, take a breath and think logically, because it's $1,000 today. And like I said, good thing it wasn't a $3,000 bill.
Right.
What if they said 5,000? Then what happens when the next guy comes along? Because not long after that, then I'm back in the dating pool again, the very shallow dating pool. What if it's another $1,000? And what if it's another $2,000? Well, it's at some point I'm first in line at bankruptcy court on Monday morning. You have to be able to think logically through these moments that involve an investment in the relationship. Like literally $1,000 is an investment in the relationship. And if you find out a couple of days later that they sold your stock and they're not invested in you, well, that $1,000 might as well just fed it to the fish.
Yeah, and you can't always assume that everybody has the same mindset of that you do, and that you're willing to help, because some people just are willing to mooch almost. So I don't know, but that shows you the type of person he is, and that you don't want to be with somebody who doesn't even bring that up. So
great advice as always. Caitlyn for the win.
Yes. Okay, when we come back, let's talk about, is a free date okay for the first date?
Good question.
Okay, we're back, and we are going to be talking about our free dates. An okay first date. Is it okay if it's free?
Okay. So you're asking me what I think?
Yeah, well, let's define what a free date could be. Like, I mean, I guess it's
zero
a free
money
date, but like, what falls under that category? I guess
no money spent. To me,
I think
that's my definition.
Perfect first date, actually.
You do.
So, I mean, yeah, if you can do that, but I just don't think you have to break the bank to go on a date. But when we've talked about that a little bit, but just you don't have to be hurting in order to do that. So if you can find those options, I'm all for it.
What's okay with you for a free first date?
Well, I got to think about these options. Nature is free, but not hiking in nature, like a park, sitting on a bench, chatting.
Sounds so boring.
Okay, and you're right. You're right. It could be boring. In that setting, I definitely would want to go buy a little ice cream or a coffee or something. So that is not free. But yeah, I'm trying to think of all the other options that we could do. I'll have to think about this for a second.
That's part of the problem is to do something for free. It usually means you have to go into the woods and hike. And I've eliminated hiking as a first
I'm
date.
on that same page. I don't think you should put yourself in danger.
I don't think I think for me and for women I know my age, it doesn't feel like a safe option to meet a perfect stranger, especially for meeting on a dating app. We have no history of who this person is. And yet I don't think we should be willing to just hike on some sort of lonely trail with a guy we've never met before.
You're right. I agree.
And then the other option would be we go on a drive together. No thanks, not getting in his car.
Yep, that's correct. One thing you could do is go to like a community park event. Like I just know around my neighborhood, they do like free Friday night concerts and stuff like that. And there's like car shows. This happens more in the summer. So I guess it depends but something like that could be fun. But then I'm treat myself all the time. So I would probably be like, oh, I want a coffee. I want an ice cream. I want this pretzel, like all that type of stuff.
When I think about
it's not required though.
Events that are free or places to go that are free, I think about public spaces like a public library. I'm like, that's a no-go for me because you can even talk in a library, right? You're supposed to be quiet.
Maybe there's like a free museum, but usually they're not all free. Art exhibit.
I think for a first date, there should be somewhere to go and meet and talk over a place. Like, for example, coffee dates are perfect. They're low cost. They show some sort of like minor initiative for one person or the other to pay. And usually there's a time limit on it. When you go on a free first date to a park, and I've done that before, we went on a walk. We met at a major park in Salt Lake City, and we went on this really weird walk. And I felt like it was kind of always a couple steps ahead of me, and there's all kinds of other people. Like we're trying to navigate people who are walking around, and just also walking beside each other, or I guess if you were hiking, which I, again, don't recommend, it's really hard to have a conversation when you're speed walking or you're talking into somebody's ear, but you're always having to like part ways because somebody else is coming the other direction. So for me, I don't do dinner dates for first dates because what I've found is they can get really long. Then, dinner dates can tend to potentially lead to something else or expectations that I just will never fulfill after that date, after the first date. So for me, dinner dates are out. Plus, you spend a lot of time getting ready, and I've been stood up for a couple of them, and it's a big letdown emotionally. I'm like, I spent a lot of time and money to get ready for dinner. So what I do is I tend to lean into things that are simple, like a coffee date, maybe an occasional lunch date in the middle of the day. And I also feel like if you're going to connect with somebody you've never met before, it should be in a space where you can sit across from each other and actually like read their body language and just have a great conversation. And all of the things I can think of that are free or low cost. Again, I'm not going to get in somebody's car. That's unsafe to me. I'm not going to go on a hike. What else is there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of strong answers. I bet that if I sat down and researched this, I could probably find 4 options that are free. But I think it's just community events is pretty much where it's at. But no, I agree with everything you just said.
Or a party.
Yeah, which it's common, but not what I want to do.
Maybe in your younger years.
When you're at a party, though, that's something I don't like about parties is like you can get into a conversation with someone, but it's sometimes can be so loud. There's so many other people there. I'm also an introvert and I don't do well in big social settings sometimes that I just end up as like a fly on the wall and blending into the environment, I guess.
I wonder if our age differences, you being in your 20s and me in my late 50s, I wonder if when we're younger, I could see you, in my 20s thinking, I got to save some money. It would be great to connect with somebody. Let me just try to figure out something to do that's low cost or free. And now that I'm inching towards 60, I'm like, Someone's paying for
You
something
can afford,
around here.
Yeah, I get that. You can afford to take me out.
McDonald's even,
for a
$5
coffee.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you on that. I think that it definitely should be. And I would love to be treated. Buy me a coffee. There's like $3 if you don't get anything crazy. But
I think that brings us to a great conversation point. If somebody wants to do a freebie on a first date, does it feel cheap to you?
it doesn't feel cheap to me. I feel it as they want to connect with me, and they want to just seize the opportunity that they have and say like, oh, do you want to go to this car show down the road? It would be nice to connect and hang out a little bit. I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. Like, I don't feel like there has to be, I could see it as, I would love that effort regardless. Like, there doesn't have to be anything attached to it. Like, if you just want to see me and hang out with me, great. That's wonderful. It's not a long list of people who have offered that to me. So I think that would be awesome. Just get my attention and make me a priority just to spend time with. That's fine. There doesn't have to be a ton of pressure on it. But I mean, I like to be treated. If you want to buy me a little ice cream, something.
How does it feel if there's always one person who has the free date? You know what I mean by that? Like, there's always one person who's always paying, whether it's the man or the woman. And I really want to address this because we've talked about, who pays for the first date or who pays for dating. And, I've been stuck with just these really absorbent date tabs, hundreds of dollars. I don't appreciate it. But when it's constantly the same person, and this will happen to men too.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to just say, oh, it's just women are, the offenders or men are the offenders. It can happen to men where maybe they feel
right,
like they have to deliver some massive date package and spend all of this money, and it's financially draining. So how does it feel when it's always just free for the other person?
Well, I don't think it should be free for the other person every single time. First date, that's one thing. Like we said, whoever asks probably takes that one and you're taking somebody out. But then after that, like, I would feel, unless they are rich and I know that they have absolutely no financial strain because I'm on the struggle bus, and I see that, and they have apps. That people make it clear when they can pay for me every single time. If they're not having an issue with it, please. But I will offer. I'll be like, can I get this one? Can I do that? But I think you kind of, as you start dating more, you kind of alternate a little bit, because it should not always land on the one person, because it can be financially draining. If you do want to go, do something a little bit more expensive, definitely get your communication skills out and talk about, okay, do you want me to take this part of it and we can start splitting things, or I'll take this one. It's just how relationships end up working as time goes on. But yeah, I don't think it should just fall on one person the entire time.
It could be 50-50 too.
Yeah, 50-50. I'm fine with 50-50. As I said, on the first day, I definitely want you to like offer to pay for me, but I got myself. Like, I'm fine. Like, I'll handle it. But
and you've said this before, and I've said it too, if the tab is split all the time, it feels more like a business.
Yeah, like even just a friend
meeting.
Yeah, a business meeting. Yeah, that's why I'm like, if you want to treat me, you can pay. I'll pay for you next time, or the next few times. I don't mind doing that. I think people like to give, and they like to treat people like that. I guess it's their love, if it's their love language or whatever. But I definitely could see people wanting, like men specifically, wanting to kind of treat women in a way. So
to me, a few bucks on a first date, sitting in a setting that you're not required to fast walk somebody and have your pedometer going the whole time, just seems a lot better to me for a first date, because I'm in there to try to figure out, I'm on that first date to try to figure out if there is a connection, not to see if I can win the foot race competition. I'm not going hiking. I've said it a million times. I'm not getting in his car. I'm not going anywhere that's free where I might feel uncomfortable. And that may include, hey, why don't we meet at my friend's house? They're doing a backyard swim party. I don't know you yet.
Yeah.
So it may be free, but do I feel free to be myself and feel comfortable?
Yeah, in like a group setting, that's also weird. As a first day, I think that you should leave that to just you two as you're establishing.
I don't think you've convinced me that.
I didn't know if I even convinced myself. I was just trying to justify it because I'm poor. I'm like, yeah, let's just connect and go on a walk. That's boring. I don't know. I also just think that I'm used to, like, when I'm like hanging out with people, I don't know if I date like strangers, or I've done that very recently because it's just, I don't like it because it makes me nervous, as we talked about. So it's like I don't think about all of those elements all the time. But I don't know. I think you could find reasons, but you should buy them like a little treat just to make them happy.
Make it feel like at least spent $2.
I deserve a treat.
Yeah.
It's fine.
All right.
I don't know.
I don't know that we've solved all the dating problems in the world, but this is great discussion. I sound judgy. I know I sound very, very judgy by saying this, but like $2, $3, $4, $5 coffee date, it's really inexpensive. It's the price of dating. Not asking you to buy me the lobster tail and the tenderloin for the first date, but let's get beyond the walk in the park.
Yeah, and I think that you deserve to have some standards. So I seem to not have the highest ones, but I'm trying. I definitely appreciate being treated. I will just say that. The key to my heart is to buy me food and make me laugh. That's all.
Love it. It's my favorite part of the show. Time for Dater Hater.
You are in the hot seat on this one because you are getting roasted on social media for not wanting to give convicts a second chance and date them.
You want to talk about my parolees?
Yes.
I have been getting roasted just a bit on social media about my hot take. I don't want to date a man with a rap sheet. For context, again, I ended up at a coffee date with a man that I later found out who had been charged with attempted murder. All right. This wasn't jaywalking. It was attempted murder. And he'd served time in prison. And then I ended up on another date with a man who I later found out, I think as I was driving there, that he had served time for fraud. And he was so good at it, he got caught twice. So I'm getting fried to some degree, especially on my TikTok page, about not wanting to give men a second chance when they've been convicted of a crime. But what's your threshold? See, I just don't think that having boundaries and standards about men I'm dating is a bad thing. I think that's a really good thing. It doesn't match my vibe. Somebody who has a rap sheet like that has been living a different life for many years that I haven't lived in that world. I've been a television news reporter. I was for about 4 years a spokesperson for the FBI in the Salt Lake City division. So I was helping our agents track down criminals by talking to the media on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. Doesn't match my vibe. Don't want to introduce that into my life and don't want to bring them into my life to meet my adult kids, period, the end.
Yeah, and I mean, you have every right to think that way. And I mean, I think I'm naive and I'm like, oh yeah, everyone deserves a second chance. They definitely have had a past. Attempted murder, different situation. If that's on your rap sheet, I think I'm going to run away from you. I do think people can change. I definitely think that, but it just depends on if, it's a frequent thing. Because I mean, I remember the fraud thing wasn't just a one-time thing, so if that's just ways they're living their life, there's a certain point where you're like, okay, I don't know if you're going to change. So it does depend on the situation and if they are really making a big attempt to change their life and if it was a one-time thing. But for the most part in your experiences, I think that you're okay to be where you're to have that opinion.
Well, some people have said just what you said, is that people can change and that giving people a second chance is a good thing, and that they would give somebody a second chance, and they don't quite understand why I wouldn't be willing to do that. But I think I've explained myself, and several other people have actually, commented that they're totally on Team Debbie here. One says, I don't blame you. Somebody came back and said, do what's best for you. I don't think you're crazy. You don't have to agree with me.
Yeah, that's a great way to have a conversation, by the way. Agree to disagree, stuff like that. And even if that's not what that is. But yeah, I just think that there's no reason. And you've seen, this thinking about our age differences, this is why I learned so much from you. You've seen a lot in life just with your career mostly, and like just your experiences with, cops and just your investigative reporting and the FBI experience, that you have reason to know that people are scary. and things like that. And I think that I still have a naive mindset thinking like, oh, everything is okay. It'll be fine. There's no reason to be afraid of things like this. But there is. And I think that if that's just not something you align with, then I think that's totally fine.
I love that you think that way.
Well,
I do.
you
I
teach
genuinely
me a lot,
love
so.
love that you think that there's hope and people can turn their lives around. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't get me wrong. I have seen it in my career and in my personal life and people I've known who had problems in the past, had run-ins with the law, and have turned their lives around. What I need to ask myself, though, and I ask myself this, when I'm dating, is who do I want to partner through life with? And is it somebody who's had a felony conviction? And again, I'm not talking about, I got a couple of speeding tickets here.
Yeah.
Like, try to, take the life of another.
A big deal.
Held a gun up to somebody.
Yeah.
Stole from them.
Those behaviors could come back too. Like, you never know.
Repeatedly have been, committed fraud. And that does not fit into where my life has been. It does not fit into where my life is going. And I also feel like my next relationship, my next long-term relationship will be the most important relationship for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
There will not be another relationship in my life. I mean, I'll have the relationship with my kids, of course, forever and for always, and they're super important to me. But what I'm saying is like to invest in a partner the way I want to invest in somebody and the way I want to shape my love life and my future partner with my significant other will be the way that I hope that he will want to invest in me. And we can't do a lot of the things that I would want to do with somebody who's spent 10 years of his life locked up in prison.
Yeah. Or
is prevented from doing certain things because he has a felony rap sheet. And you can go back and say, well, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe some people have indicated, well, maybe there was self-defense involved. Like, look, if I read attempted murder, burglary, robbery, fraud, sex abuse on somebody's, in somebody's background, and there's domestic violence would be another one. That's not something that I can allow into my life. And I really started to think deeply about this after I started getting comments, Caitlyn, about you should, people can change. You should think about giving people a second chance. And what I thought about was all of the stories that as a news reporter since 1989 that I have covered, all the families I've interviewed, the survivors of murder victims, the survivors of, bank robbery and how shaken they were and how scared they were in the moment. The survivors of kidnappings. Like, I spent a huge part of my career covering, many people know this case, the 2002 kidnapping of Elizabeth Smart from her home in Salt Lake City when she was 14 years old. And she was found alive in Utah, 9 months later, with her kidnappers. And she is a survivor beyond any survivor I've, ever had the privilege and the honor of talking to. And I have to ask myself, after covering those types of stories, just heinous crimes, could I invite the person who perpetrated that crime into my life and connect with them? And the answer is a resounding absolutely not.
Yeah.
I may be coming at this from a side that is so jaded that to me, second chances are maybe great for somebody else if that's what they want to do and allow to. But for me, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't go back and re-interview those same victims and those survivors and say, oh, just so you know, I'm dating somebody who did the same thing to somebody else's. So because those stories over the years have so profoundly impacted me, I still think about so many of them, day in and day out, I wake up and I think about, how's Elizabeth Smart doing? I hope she and her kids and her family and her husband are great. And what about the victim of that little girl, like her parents who, it was such a tragedy when she was murdered. And I wonder I wonder how they're doing today, 30 years later. And I'm sure it's just so horrific on them. And there's no way. I cannot invite that type of person into my life who has been engaged in these type of behaviors. And I understand that all crimes are different. There's all kinds of different levels of crimes. But that's my bottom line. And so roast away on social media, but that's where I'm coming from. And I do believe that the person that you pick to partner with your life will be the most important relationship you will have. Mm-hmm. More important than who you work with, more important than who you do business with, more important than anything, who your parents are. That is the person that you're going to go through life with. And the choices that they've made in their past matter to me.
Yeah, and I don't even know what to say after you just said that all very well. I just think you deserve the right to be picky because you are choosing someone to live life with. And I think all of us deserve that, but especially with your life experiences. I don't know if I just hear about all of these things because we work together every day, but that was a very good explanation as to why I think that you feel that way. And I think obviously the second chance can be done on a case-by-case basis, just depending on the person. But all of that makes so much sense. And they are essentially competing with your peace. So if you're going to let somebody into your life, they better be worth it and going to provide value to your life and not drag you back with past issues. And like you said, if you are a felon, you can't do everything that everyone else can. So it's going to cause problems. So I agree with you 100% on everything you just said. So be nice to Debbie on TikTok and all the other social platforms. You can have an opinion. That's what it's for. You can all have an opinion. But I think that this was a good conversation just because, it's your life. Who you choose to stand by it makes a big difference. So.
I do love that people are giving others a second chance. Mm-hmm. You just have to decide, where those second chances make sense for your own life.
Yeah. Dater, hater. Make sure to follow Dating at Her Age on social media. And if you have any feedback or an opinion about anything we've talked about, you can send us a message or you can give us a call.
Yeah, and we're on all the social platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. And yeah, that phone number, 801-575-5599. Again, 801-575-5599. It's our Dater Hater hotline. You can leave us a message about your dater hater moment, that time you went on a date and you're like, ugh. You can share it and we may play it back on the air.
And if you don't want to call and leave a voicemail, you can send us an email, daha@ksl.com.
I'm really excited, Caitlyn, for our next episode of Dating at Her Age, because we're going to speak to a financial expert about the pitfalls of dating somebody who may be on the verge of bankruptcy court, Caitlyn. So what's the one thing that you really want to find out as a 29-year-old?
I want to know when you should cut it off with somebody who's in their late 20s, early 30s, if they just don't seem to be financially stable.
Oh, maybe they don't have a job and they're not. Oh,
and I just don't know if it's ever going to change. I want to know how to identify that before it gets too late.
And I know for a fact that dating a broke guy in your 20s is going to look a lot different than dating a broke guy in your 50s, because I don't have as much runway left as you do.
Because I hold on to potential because we're all trying our best, but I don't know how much I should invest.
Well, that's a great question, and we'll ask him that next episode of Dating at Her Age.